Sam and Amber are so good, and they are really. It's a pleasure to even watch them so many years later. I mean, they just leap off the screen. Sam was one of two actors who we were considering for the role, the other being Michael Imperioli, who plays Christopher on The Sopranos. And Sam came back and auditioned 3 times. He wasn't famous at that point, but he was just electric. And Amber and him had such an interesting relationship because all during rehearsals they were very buddy-buddy, of course, as actors are. But the second we started filming, Amber just turned off to him, completely wouldn't even talk to him. Wouldn't talk to many people. She was very sort of methody in a way, and it flipped Sam out because she had been so friendly, and she made him insecure, which is exactly how his character should be in the movie. I mean, she's in control, and that's the whole movie's about that, really. She's in control of Sam's character and John Rubinstein's character, and it was interesting how her process worked and helped everyone around. This is the part of Williamsburg, Brooklyn. It's supposed to be Harlem, but we shot in Williamsburg, Brooklyn, and it was so crazy cold when we shot this. I cannot even tell you. Mid-February in New York, as cold as you can imagine. And this was about the 4th day of shooting, and night shoots are difficult no matter what. They're more difficult when you don't have heaters. You can barely afford any place for the actors or crew to get warm. And most importantly, that you're not paying the crew. That this was a completely deferred movie, so these people were there out of their love of film and their commitment to this project. But around 4 in the morning, when it's about 5 degrees out, commitment becomes a real issue. And I must tell you that during this night, I was worried that the crew was just going to say, we can't do it anymore. We have to go home. It's too cold. And what was I going to do? I mean, I only had 18 days. I only had these actors for a certain amount of time. We could not afford to shoot another day. It was a real scary thing. But to their credit, to Shirley Davis, our line producer who got this crew, to everyone's credit, they stuck with us, even though it was particularly brutal filming conditions. I think one of the things that helped was that our producer, composer Rolf Kent, flew in his brother from England, who's a chef, and he cooked for the crew, and his food was so incredibly good that the crew actually, I've never seen a film crew love food as much, and I think it was like a feeling that if they were going to be working their butts off in the cold, at least we were supplying them with delicious food, and I think they respected that. And on a $52,000 budget to spend almost $1,000 of it flying someone in from England to cook, he better have been good. But he was, thank goodness.
At the phone booth at the corner of.
So we had about 3 hours to shoot all of this stuff that's coming up of John Rubinstein running through the streets of Brooklyn / Harlem after Sam Rockwell sends him on this journey. And when we're talking about having so little time that you have 3 hours to shoot almost all of the running stuff, it was incredibly difficult for us because we had to shoot all of this dialogue stuff by the phone, and then we had to shoot him running. And so in the next shot where he's running by a train, we basically knew a train was coming every 20 minutes, and we set up the camera, and there was John running. I mean, it was a one-take thing. We had no chance to go back. The scene right here, this is what we call the Alley of Death. It really was an alleyway filled with junkies and needles, and it was so scary none of us wanted to even go down there. But we ended up filming there, and it's gorgeous. I mean, it's lit, but it's gorgeous. But again, we were battling the daylight. And then we got to the scene at the subway, and this was completely stolen. We told the subway guy in the booth that we were filming a student film, and then we just sort of documentary styled it. I mean, John really jumps over the turnstile. Those people getting out of the train are real people, and they are really reacting to this crazy man screaming and jumping onto this train. And we had one take because John was getting on that train and he was heading away, so we better have got it. Pretty interesting. We certainly couldn't afford to rent a train because in New York that's $10,000. So this is an interesting thing. During this scene, Sam he's so good in it. And he says at one point, "I'm the Al Pacino," which I thought was hysterically funny, since the line was, "I'm Al Pacino," not "I'm the Al Pacino." And I told him I thought that was a great improvisation to add the, and he said it's in the script. And it was in the script. It was a typo. The word "the" was there, but he took it as the Bible there, and he said it, and it's one of those little happy accidents that happens, and mostly typos are not happy accidents. I wish this subway car was empty. Instead, it has two extras who are crew members in it. Looking back now, I think I should have shot farther back, and it should have been empty, but we were tired and exhausted, and it was the last day of shooting, and I wasn't thinking right. The woman in the foreground was our locations manager, Genevieve Lohman, who deserves some credit for getting all of our locations for the money that she had, which was $500. Not only did she have to get these locations, but she had to get holding areas to keep the crew and cast. And that's really almost impossible. So she really was not against, lying and fake crying and doing everything she possibly could to get this done. I mean, she even went so far as to give a phony script to several churches, and we ended up using the rooms they end up having AA meetings in as holding areas for our film, thinking that we were making some nice family film, which is why at the end credits of our movie there's about 25 churches thanked at the end, because they all donated their rec rooms to allow us to keep our crew in. Now, one of the things that's interesting is the fact that we had so little time to shoot these scenes with Sam and Amber and Rhea that a lot of it was done in one take, which is not the normal way to do things. And when I say one take, I mean not a lot of coverage. We do 2 or 3 takes of each setup, but this was basically one shot, and it lasts for 2 or 3 pages, and that's just not recommended by the board of film, if there's such a thing. But unless you're Woody Allen, who of course is moving the camera and doing very complicated blocking, this was not that complicated. This was just, we had no time. And the reason that this even works at all was because of the great acting. Now, this intercutting with John running while she's talking was a editorial decision, not a script decision, but it really ties the two of them together in a very important way, which is something that we were very much trying to do. So when we were editing, we ended up finding other little snippets of John and tying them to Amber, to Ruby, so that it would look like she was in control of him. This shot's sort of interesting of John. It's a long lens shot, mostly because we filmed it not in downtown, but in Midtown, where we were shooting another location. And with a long lens, it blurs everything but the thing in focus, so you had no idea where you were. It also sort of added to a 70s look that we were trying to go for, sort of French Connection, gritty, long lens stuff. And certainly the Super 16 film added a grain element. So we sort of were hiding a locations cheat as well as doing a stylistic thing. This is also interesting that Sam's a little soft here in this shot. This is another thing when you use a long lens, the focus is critical. And, it was late at night, and there's a mistake here. He's soft, but it really doesn't matter in a way, because his performance is so good you almost don't notice it. And, we let it go. I mean, what can you do? We couldn't reshoot it. So this location was on Park Avenue. I love the red background. We shot available light. I love the silhouettes. This movie was written a few years before we made it. I ended up optioning it in the studio system where I was working as a writer, and it sort of almost got to the next level of getting made, but never quite got there, mostly because it was just a little dark. People seemed to like the kidnapping thriller elements, but they didn't really like the sort of social elements. They didn't like that the lead character ended up, being, a rapist almost, and that there were all this class stuff. They really just wanted the thriller elements, and I really didn't. And I wanted to direct it, and I never gave up the control of that. And basically, in order to get the movie made the way I wanted to make it, it was just not going to happen in the studio system. So I got the script back. I ended up getting all the rights to it back, and my then girlfriend, Tamar Brott, who's a writer, said, you know what, go make the movie yourself. And it was really an empowering decision to do. And, somehow we were able to raise the money and get the movie made. And it was the greatest thing I ever did, personally. It jump-started my directing career and got me financing for other movies. And all because we ended up making it. A few years later, after this movie was done shooting, about a year and a half later, the studio system ended up making a movie called Ransom with Mel Gibson, which is quite a good movie and not dissimilar to this film. And it has no social or elements to it. It's just sort of a straight-ahead thriller. Interesting thing is that there's a lot of similarities, and some of the executives on that film were the people who actually had optioned my script. And if you watch the two films back to back, you'll see weird things that are coincidences or not. I mean, in this film, Ruby has a tattoo on her neck, and it's a plot point. In Ransom, Lily Taylor has a tattoo on her neck. She plays a female kidnapper, and there's no reason for it. And many of the other things, but what can you do? We ended up playing the festival circuit for a year with this movie, and it ended up getting a brief release in theaters, and it was very important to me to get it out before Ransom came out, so no one would think that we ripped them off, which was certainly not the case. Here's another scene, by the way, that Sam is a little soft, but in this one it's pretty interesting because the focus is soft on Sam, but Amber is absolutely perfectly in focus, and it's so perfect for their characters that she's the one in control. Of course, it's an accident, but I love it. The scenes with John we shot on 8th Avenue, and it was so freezing cold that we ended up having to stop early. The only night we had to stop early because it was so cold that I couldn't even feel my feet. This scene of him running through the pre-Giuliani Times Square, it's not the same now. It's been Disneyfied, but we stole that shot. We just ran and got it in like 10 minutes. I love it. It's like the last document of a Times Square that is now gone. And this dissolve, as you see Amber sort of talking about John's character, and you see him sort of almost in her hand during that dissolve, was also a editorial decision to tie the two of them together to show their